Welcome, friends, to the Someone Gets Me podcast. I am your host, Dianne A, and I am so delighted that you're here. This podcast was created because I believe there is a visionary leader inside each one of us who is waiting to be seen. In each episode of Someone Gets Me, you will hear useful tips from successful visionaries who will share their stories about how being seen has allowed them to take their vision out into the world with action.
Holding space, supporting others without absorbing their energy. That's the title of today's show. It's Someone Gets Me. Hi, it's Dianne, your host here, talking to you about something that's very near and dear to my heart. And that is the idea of holding space for others. Many years ago, I was trained as a chaplain in Unity. And one of the big things that they taught all of us was how to hold space, how to be present with people and not take on their energy. Because when we absorb the energy, especially if it's pain or grief or trauma, then it's living in our body now. And that person might have relief, but now you're paying the price, right? So I've learned this from many, many years ago. And as a therapist for 4 decades, I've learned how to be present with someone and hold that safe space for them without taking it on. In fact, often I will have clients of mine say when they've had a really hard day, like, I don't want you to take it on. I don't want to give it to you. And I always say I have very good boundaries. I am able to hold space for you and be there for you without absorbing your energy. And that's the sign of somebody who is skilled at what they do. So it's important to understand that you can do it. Now, I also have some friends of mine out in the world that I've known for a long time, 2 of them to be specific, and they were diagnosed at one point with a very severe kind of throat cancer. And it was lots of treatment and issues and were they going to live or not live or what was going to happen and how it was going to be. There was a common denominator with both of these people, and that is that they were very good at holding space for others. Actually, they were great at it. And they had never learned the skill of not absorbing the energy. So their body was paying the physical price for absorbing all that energy. And interestingly, once they started doing the inner work that so many people avoid, but these people didn't, when they were doing the inner work and changed their nutrition, the cancer in both cases went into remission, and now they're doing great. Well, what's the message in this? The message is that our body bears the burden. Our body, when we absorb energy of any kind, has to pay the price somewhere. So we get to decide what energy we're absorbing and how, and what the rules are about it. And so I want to talk about how we can do that because I think it's so important. Now, as gifted people or empaths, we tend to get in that trap of, oh, I feel for you. I feel with you. And I hear some people sometimes say it and their energy is actually sticky and they want to grab on and make your issue their thing, right? Which also is not very healthy, by the way. And so there's that trap that an empath can get in of identifying with and feeling with the person, but yet not being able to maintain their own space, their own identity in it. Some empaths I know, some gifted people I know try to carry the person. Like, I'm going to hear your pain or I'm going to listen to what's bothering you. And then on a level within them, conscious or unconscious, they decide they're going to carry that burden for you. And that is not healthy. What is healthy is being in that space, listening to what's being said and listening to what's not being said with our ears and with our heart and with our soul to really be present and not take it on and not absorb it. And sometimes that's a lot harder to do than other times. And sometimes when we're tired or when we have decision fatigue after a long day of work, or if we're distracted or we're not paying attention, or maybe the love boundaries are kind of squishy with that person and it's hard to separate. See, some people think it's noble to take on other people's pain, but it's not noble. You're not doing anyone any favors. In fact, you're harming yourself. So it's so important to realize that we can hold space for other people and we don't have to take it on. I know it's pretty amazing, right? And there's a difference. There's a big difference between being fully present, caring about that person, listening on all levels, making sure you're not distracted, and trying to take it on and carry the person or solve the problem or do the work for them. You know, when I was a beginning counselor way back 40 something years ago, it was tempting to solve the problem for the person or make the phone call, do the thing. And now I realize that, well, over the years, I now practice it, I guess is a better way to say it, is people are responsible for doing things that they're able to do. So the way I think about it is this. If you're doing something for someone that they are able to do on their own, now they're able to, but you're picking up and doing it for them. That's the most nicest way of lowering someone's self-esteem and demeaning them. It's the kindest, most loving way of telling someone that you don't really think they're competent and they're not able. Now, there are some people who will try to behaviorally get you to do it for them. And then I don't know who's responsible, the person who invited the dance or the person who picked it up. Both people are equally responsible on a level of keeping the issue, the problem going. So if somebody has the ability and we do it for them and they're able to, then we take the risk of demeaning them in a way, not knowingly often, but it's kind of like, oh, you don't even think I'm good enough to do this, or I'm not smart enough to do that. Maybe your intention wasn't that at all. Maybe your intention was service or trying to be helpful. So here's a rule. Ask anyone that you are holding space for, or you are supporting, or that you love, or that you care about. Ask them before you do anything. Ask them if it's okay. And if they say, I don't care, do whatever you want to do, you do nothing until they say yes or no. Because when we get permission to act in a certain way or give feedback in a certain way or do something, that's a whole different thing than when you jump in and try to do it. You know, I was dating this really great guy one time and it didn't matter what I'd said. I had an issue with my phone one day and I was just kind of going off about my phone, just venting a little bit. And next thing I know, I get an email with all of these different phone plans and issues and ways to solve his perception of the problem. The only thing that's missing here is that there was no problem. I didn't ask for his help. So the message I got on a very non-intentional way on his part was that somehow I can't do that research on my own or figure out my own solution. I never asked for the assistance. Now, fortunately, I let him know that I would appreciate it in the future if he would ask before he did that, and told him why. And he was totally respectful from then on. So a lot of times when we care about somebody or we love somebody or we're naturally a helpful giving person, it's very easy to overstep our boundaries and start to do things for other people that they're willing and able to do on their own, or they're able to do and they need to learn that they're able to do. So ask permission before you step into somebody's world. Now, they may call you to vent or talk to you. And so sometimes I say, how do you want me to listen? Do you want me to listen as a friend? Do you want me to help you solve a problem? What is it that you're looking for from me? And if they say, I just want to vent, I need somebody to listen, then okay. That doesn't mean I'm going to give advice or my input or my ideas unless they're asked for. And that's a very important boundary. It's a very important sign of respect, is to not step on somebody else's world without their expressed permission. Our nervous system, as gifted, intensely sensitive people, tends to feel everything, even things that are not ours. There are days, I'm sure, that you've gone outside and you can just step out into the air or you can step into a room with people in it and you can feel and sense something. Either something's up or something's great or something you kind of know in a real, energetic, palpable way what's happening. Our nervous systems are very acutely tuned in. Now, if you've lived as a guardian child or as somebody who's had a lot of chaos in your life, and most of us have had chaos in our lives, we're even better at discerning those things. We notice all the details, all the nuance without a word being spoken. So our nervous systems are already primed and able to absorb whatever's going on around us. You know, it's probably happened to you, right? Where you were around somebody and they were feeling all ho-hum and depressed, and then pretty soon your upbeat mood was kind of flatter. Or the other way around, you were kind of in a flat mood, and then, you know, one of your friends or somebody comes around and they're being more jovial, and next thing you know, you're feeling better. Because our being, our systems absorb the energy around us naturally. And so if we're hypervigilant in any way, or we're paying attention on those levels, then it could even escalate. So we want to learn how to have boundaries around us. A boundary is a rule of a way of acting, a way of being, so that we don't take on and absorb all of these energy all over the place, because it will exhaust us. Now, one of the things I do is I have what I call my bubble. It in my mind's eye, I've created it in an open-eyed visual meditation. If you'd like me to do it with you, make a get to know you call, and I'm happy to do it with you. But short story is, I imagine my favorite color, my favorite textures and everything, and it's a bubble, and it goes above my head and under my feet and all around me. So I'm actually within this, and nobody else can see it. But I can not only see it, but I can feel it. And in my bubble and on the perimeter of it are kind of openings, and that open and close, much like a cell membrane would. And what can come in is love and beauty and kindness and joy and happiness. But what does not get in are lower vibration things like grief and fear and sadness and anger and avarice, guilt. Those things do not have to come in. Now, I can experience them with someone. I can sit and hold sacred space. I can listen. I can talk back. It doesn't mean I don't hear it and I don't know it and I don't understand and feel it. The difference is with that bubble around me, I don't absorb it. So you can be fully present and hear and empathize without the absorption part. It's not noble to absorb all the trauma and pain of the world and be the living martyr. That's not noble. What is noble is to have real clear inner boundaries and a real clear identity, so that as you walk through the world, you are able to be that beneficial presence without it eating you alive and harming you. That's what is noble. And I think sometimes we've learned this whole martyr dance in our society, and that's not noble in this situation. It's just not. You're much more of a beneficial presence by holding your sovereign sacred space and being grounded. You can have compassion without melding into the person, without melding into the situation, because once you meld into it, you're now in the issue. And now your viewpoints, your understanding, your feedback, your support, your compassion is now colored by whatever is happening. And your objectivity just went out the window. And most likely, the person who is seeking you or the person you're engaged with would like your objectivity, would like you to be that grounded person. If they're inviting you to be in the mess with them, you might want to look at that, right? Because most people want us to be there for them, to hold that space. And so our number one thing to pay attention to are your inner boundaries. That's what I call them. Yummy, yummy peppermint tea. Inner boundaries are how much of you do you let show up in a situation? So when we talk about boundaries a lot, we talk about how much, what we let in, how close people can get to us, how much emotion from outside in. I'm talking about inner boundaries here, and I'm talking about how much of you let show up in the world. For example, when I'm working with my gifted clients, or like I'm getting ready to do my curate and run and facilitate my retreat, and when I'm with a group, then my boundaries are a little bit more open, and I'm fully out there, and I'm present, and I'm on point. My boundaries might be different when I'm in a crowd or at the grocery store or doing something where I need to pay attention, again, to the bubble. So my inner world, the question I ask all the time is, how much of Dianne needs to come to this situation? How much of Dianne needs to come to this meeting or that experience? And if it's 5% of me, then 5% of me comes. Now, the rest of me is still there. It's just that 5% is all that shows up, because I don't need 100% of all of my gifted overexcitabilities and my hypervigilance and my empath intuition. I don't need all of that intensity to go get gas in my car. No, not unless I get in a great conversation, in which case I can change it, but it's probably not going to happen that way. And so when we're holding this space and we're being that beneficial presence, we're paying attention to how much of us is showing up in the world. And so if I'm working with one of my clients, or I'm working with or somebody else, or I'm talking to a friend, and they're in a place where they're wanting to share some things and they would like my attention and my feedback and me to hold that space, then I get to decide how much of me shows up for that. That's on me, the internal boundaries. It's so important that you take responsibility for that. So if I really, really care about somebody and I have deep love for them, I need to be more attentive, and that I don't fuse things. And I call it getting sticky boundaries, because when the boundaries get sticky and they get squishy and they get all messed up, it makes the relationship feel really weird. Whether it's friends, lovers, family, whatever, it makes it weird. So we want to be real clear on what it is we're doing and not doing. You know, sometimes somebody's talking about something that might be over your head. You may not know what to say back, in which case it's okay to say that. Right? Am I making sense? I think I'm making sense. I hope I am. Anyway, I'm having fun thinking about this, because I hold space all the time for people. It's natural to me. I learned it a long time ago as a therapist, and again also when I was in seminary. And it's important, I believe, for those of us who are intensely sensitive and gifted to be that stabilizing force, to allow ourselves to stand in our sovereignty, be grounded in who we are and what we're here to do on earth. And part of that is learning and listening and caring for others while maintaining our own sovereignty and our own identity, not getting all squished in and meshed in to the point where no one can tell who starts and stops when and where. Unfortunately, we live in a society that promotes squishy boundaries. And sometimes that causes more pain than we would like. So I want to encourage you to learn how to hold space for another person, whether you're doing it professionally, personally, or both, and not take on the stuff. How you can hold space for the chaos in our world and not take it on. How to have compassion and care and not take it in and create sickness in your own body. Because your body will bear the burden. It will get contaminated, sort of, and then you end up with a dis-ease of some sort. And we don't want that. We want you to be thriving and alive and happy and joyful. And the way we do that often is by having really nice, clear inner boundaries, breathing, being present, standing in our agency, right? Understanding who we are and what our role is in the situation. Again, often I ask people, how do you want me to listen to you? Now, my clients, I kind of already know how they want me to listen to them, because they have engaged with me in a certain way. But when it's somebody who's like my friends or a coworker or something, or a colleague over here or something like that, where it could be more than one way of listening, I always ask, how do you want me to hear you? because that is going to help me create the inner boundaries, the inner roles necessary in order to be present and hold space without taking on something that I'm not meant to take on. Because we can support people, excuse me, without living it out with them. See, I think some people think that if somebody calls you and say they're grieving, and that you need to feel grief too, or you need to make them feel all better really fast. But everybody grieves in their own way, whatever it is they're grieving. And whatever time it takes is whatever time it takes. It's not the same for everybody. When people are healing from all different kinds of wounds or traumas or upsets or losses, it takes a little while, and everybody takes it their own way. Whether it's from a natural disaster like a hurricane or something like that, or a car accident, there's all different kinds of things that people are processing. We all are processing things. Nobody is done. And so when people say, oh, I've done it all already. No. You might have done everything for that level of where you are, but we're never done. We're always learning how to hold space. We're always learning how to be present for others. We're always sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey would say. We're always learning and growing and being better at holding that space for someone and not taking it on. I think sometimes if I'd learned it before, earlier in my career, I probably would have had a lot less mistakes and a lot less heartache. And I'm glad I learned it as young as I did. So it's kind of goes with that, right? So we want to make sure that we are holding our space for others, and we're also holding that space for ourselves. I've had people call before where I was not emotionally available. Maybe I was too tired, or had a really hard day, or I was distracted and I couldn't be present. My inner boundary said, tell the person you can't be fully present before they start talking, because they may need more from you than you can give them right now. So I tell them, and they can either keep going, knowing I'm not 100% there, or they can choose to talk to somebody else or call me later or whatever. But it's important to be honest with ourselves about how much of us can show up to the situation. Because when you tell somebody, go ahead, say it, you don't know what's coming 100% of the time. You might know parts of it, but you never really quite know. So it's always important to ask yourself, how much of me is available? That's really, really important. So what I want you to remember is that you can hold space for someone without absorbing their energy. You can hold space with somebody with dignity and respect and love and kindness that has really nice, healthy boundaries. That is a sign of love and respect. When you don't take on for someone else what they can do for themselves, when you don't rush in and cross all those boundaries and act like you're going to be the savior, because all of us are charged with taking care of our lives the best way we can. And to be truly interdependent and holding that space and being present for others is a sign of somebody who's mature emotionally and wise, where they realize they do not have to take it all on. That's interdependence, knowing what I have to give, knowing what I bring to the table, and being willing to ask for assistance or ask for what I need of the things I don't have. Interdependence. Humans or pack animals were meant to be interdependent with others of the same species. Sharing and talking and being together is part of our natural socialization. It's important to us. It's important to our biology. It's important to our neurology, our emotional health, our mental health, and our physical health. So it matters that we allow ourselves to engage in a healthy way with others. And one of the first fundamental ways to do it is to be engaged with another person without taking all their stuff from them and carrying it into your body. That's the first fundamental rule. How can we listen? How can we be present and not be the sponge? If you have any questions or you need assistance with it, or you would like to work with me about this issue, please make a get to know you call. You can go on the show notes and make an appointment. They're free. And I'm happy to speak with you about 30 minutes or so, and we can talk about this more or anything else that you might want to talk about for that matter. It'll be your time to pick my brain, to have something solved, to take care of something that's important to you, and decide how you want to move forward in your world, because it's very important. You are very important. So thank you for listening to this show, If Someone Gets Me. And remember to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you are a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there and let your light shine. And until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, this is Dianne saying, be well.
Thank you for listening. I trust you gained some valuable inspiration and information. Please join me and other visionaries in the Someone Gets Me Facebook group. Or for more information on my services and additional episodes, visit someonegetsme.com. Again, thanks for listening.